I Love Lucy, 1951 to 1957, remains one of the most iconic and beloved sitcoms in television history, with unforgettable performances from Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz, and the supporting cast. However, behind the laughter and timeless comedy, many of the stars who helped make the show a cultural phenomenon have tragically passed away over the years. From unexpected health battles to accidents, several key actors left us too soon. In this post, we remember and honor the lives of the talented stars from I Love Lucy whose legacies continue to shine, despite their untimely deaths. Lucille Ball was born on August 6, 1911, and played Lucy Ricardo in 1951 at the age of 40. On screen, Lucy was a lovable troublemaker with big dreams, but Lucille's real life was marked by controversy and iron-fisted control. While her comedic timing was legendary, behind the scenes she was feared for her temper and obsession with perfection. Her past included posing nude under an alias and being briefly affiliated with the Communist Party, an association that nearly got her blacklisted during the Red Scare, saved only by a desperate PR campaign. Her marriage to Desi Arnaz was a toxic cycle of betrayal, jealousy, and public deception. She tolerated years of his affairs and drinking before finally divorcing him. Ball was known to blacklist actresses she saw as rivals and could be cold, even to close colleagues. Her relationships with her children were distant, particularly with her son Desi Jr., who struggled with drugs and resented her absence. Despite her groundbreaking work in TV, she was deeply lonely by the end. Lucille Ball died on April 26, 1989, at the age of 77 from a ruptured abdominal aorta. Desi Arnaz was born on March 2, 1917, and began portraying Ricky Ricardo in 1951 when he was 34. While Ricky was charming and talented, Desi's real life was chaotic and dark. A Cuban exile turned TV mogul, he revolutionized television production but was consumed by his demons. He was a heavy drinker and a compulsive womanizer, known for hosting wild, booze-fueled parties and cheating openly on Lucille Ball, sometimes even on the set. Their marriage, filled with screaming matches and emotional abuse, was called a Hollywood battlefield by insiders. Despite co-founding Desilu Studios, he was pushed out after his alcoholism worsened and business deals failed. His daughter later admitted he was emotionally absent and destructive at home. Desi gambled away fortunes and clashed with executives, gaining a reputation for being brilliant but volatile. In his later years, he withdrew from Hollywood entirely, relying on his second wife to manage his deteriorating health. He died on December 2, 1986, from lung cancer, at the age of 69. William Frolley was born on February 26, 1887, and started playing Fred Mertz in 1951 at the age of 64. Fred was a cranky but lovable landlord, though in reality, Frolley was a volatile alcoholic with a notorious temper. His drinking was so severe that producers demanded he stay sober or be fired. He often arrived to set hungover and combative, once throwing a script at a young assistant. His feud with Vivian Vance became legend. She thought he was sexist and crude, while he mocked her looks and called her the cow. Frolley had a history of being fired from film roles due to drinking and once punched a director during a drunken rage. Despite his iconic role, he died alone and estranged from most of his peers, having never married or reconciled with his siblings. After being written off My Three Sons for health reasons, he lived in a hotel, mostly forgotten by Hollywood. He died of a heart attack on March 3, 1966, at age 79. Vivian Vance was born on July 26, 1909, and took on the role of Ethel Mertz in 1951 at the age of 42. On screen, Ethel was the loyal, comedic best friend, but Vivian privately loathed the role for making her feel frumpy and old next to Lucille Ball. The tension with her co-star William Frolley was palpable. They despised each other, and she once said she'd never attend his funeral. Vivian struggled with mental illness throughout her life, including crippling depression and breakdowns that led to psychiatric treatment. She married 4 times, each union ending in heartbreak or dysfunction, and she allegedly engaged in affairs with women, a taboo topic she buried for fear of career ruin. She was once institutionalized for emotional instability during the show's run and felt trapped in her public persona. Constant criticism about her weight and appearance deepened her insecurities. Despite trying to revive her career in theater, she never escaped Ethel's shadow. She died of metastatic breast cancer on August 17, 1979, at the age of 70, in relative obscurity. Jerry Housener was born on May 20, 1909, and portrayed Jerry the agent in I Love Lucy beginning in 1951, at the age of 42. Though his role was small, he was a recurring presence, playing the slick and self-interested agent with ease. Off-camera, Housener kept a low profile but had a reputation for being bitter and territorial in the competitive world of voice acting. He resented being typecast and lashed out at producers who passed him over for bigger roles. Known among peers for being difficult to direct, he often clashed with up-and-coming talent and was rumored to have threatened lawsuits over casting decisions. Though not embroiled in major public scandal, his abrasive personality reportedly burned many bridges, limiting his mainstream success. Housener later faded into the background of the industry, working sporadically in radio and cartoons. He died of heart failure on April 1, 1993, at the age of 83, without major fanfare or tribute. Frank Nelson was born on May 6, 1911, and joined I Love Lucy in 1951 as Ralph Ramsey at age 40. Though beloved for his signature sarcastic ease, Nelson's off-screen personality was far from affable. A notorious control freak, he often demanded script rewrites to favor his comedic rhythm, leading to friction with writers and co-stars alike. Several studio insiders claimed he had explosive arguments with producers, and once threatened to walk off set over a billing dispute. He was rumored to have sabotaged other voice actors' opportunities in radio, fearing they might outshine him. His marriage was marked by turbulence, with reports of infidelity and an alleged scandal involving a young actress he mentored, which quietly led to an out-of-court settlement. Despite his talents, many in Hollywood saw him as a toxic presence, which may explain his limited rise beyond cameo roles. He died of cancer on September 12, 1986, at the age of 75. Elizabeth Patterson was born on November 22, 1874, and played Mrs. Trumbull starting in 1952, at the age of 78. On screen, she was the quintessential sweet elderly neighbor and Little Ricky's caring babysitter, but Patterson's real life was far more somber. She never married, and whispers in the industry hinted at a tragic love affair in her youth that ended in scandal, leading to a lifelong vow of solitude. Known for her reclusive behavior, she reportedly avoided cast gatherings and was once found crying backstage, clutching a letter she never explained. Some colleagues described her as obsessive, insisting on perfecting even minor lines, often to the frustration of younger cast members. Though never embroiled in public scandal, she was quietly dropped from projects in the 1940s after being labeled too difficult by producers. Her career, once promising in theater, faded into obscurity until her late-life television role. She died of pneumonia on January 31, 1966, at the age of 91. Doris Singleton was born on September 28, 1919, and began playing Caroline Appleby in 1953, when she was 34. Her character was Lucy's smug, social climbing frenemy, but Singleton's real-life coldness toward Lucille Ball was much more than fiction. Though they had a cordial public image, insiders claim Singleton resented Ball's authority on set and mocked her behind her back. Her professional career was peppered with tension, particularly after she was quietly replaced in a spin-off project due to on-set friction. There were whispers of Singleton's flirtations with studio executives, fueling accusations that she leveraged personal connections over talent. Off-camera, she struggled with her husband's gambling addiction, which led to significant financial strain and caused her to temporarily move in with friends. Though she kept a clean public profile, Singleton was allegedly blackballed from several roles after a fallout with a casting director. She died of cancer on June 26, 2012, at the age of 92. Richard Reeves was born on August 10, 1912, and played the role of an assassin in 1951, at the age of 39. Cold-eyed and silent, his character brought a threatening undercurrent to Lucy's comic universe. Off-screen, Reeves was far from the stoic killer he portrayed. Behind a wall of minor roles and forgotten bit parts, he battled a decade-long addiction to alcohol that derailed what little momentum his career had. Blacklisted briefly during the Red Scare for suspected communist ties, Reeves quietly vanished from lead casting lists. His personal life was no less turbulent. A failed marriage ended with his wife accusing him of emotional cruelty and dangerous mood swings. Industry whispers alleged physical outbursts on set and aggressive behavior during late-night drinking sessions, but no official charges ever stuck. Despite his intimidating presence on camera, his real demons were internal. Reeves died of a heart attack on March 17, 1967, at the age of 54, alone and virtually forgotten by the Hollywood machine. Barbara Pepper was born on May 31, 1915, and made her appearance on I Love Lucy in 1952 at age 37 as a party guest. Though her role was small, her off-screen story loomed large. Once a stunning Ziegfeld girl and close friend of Lucille Ball, Pepper's descent into alcoholism became one of Hollywood's most tragic cautionary tales. After her husband's untimely death in a motorcycle accident, she spiraled, appearing intoxicated at auditions and reportedly slurring her lines on camera. Several directors blacklisted her, citing unreliability and erratic behavior, and by the late 50s, she was taking minor roles out of desperation. She was known to pawn personal belongings and once spent a night in jail after a drunken altercation outside a nightclub. Despite Lucille Ball's repeated attempts to help her sober up, Pepper's self-destruction persisted. Her health deteriorated quickly, and she died of coronary thrombosis on July 18, 1969, at the age of 54, penniless and estranged from her former colleagues. Catherine Card was born on October 4, 1892, and began portraying Lucy's scatterbrained mother, Mrs. McGillicuddy, in 1954 at the age of 62. On screen she was lovable and eccentric, but behind the scenes, her life was filled with quiet sorrow. She had lost her only child at birth and lived in near isolation for much of her adult life, surrounded by bitter memories and unfulfilled ambitions. Card struggled to gain respect in the male-dominated radio world, often passed over for younger, prettier actresses despite her talent. Rumors persisted that she had a long-running affair with a married radio executive, which damaged her reputation and cost her multiple roles. Coworkers described her as intensely nervous, obsessively checking scripts, and suffering panic attacks before filming. Her health declined in the early 60s, and she became increasingly paranoid, convinced she was being watched by former rivals. She died of a heart attack on March 1, 1964, at the age of 71, nearly forgotten by the industry she fought so hard to stay in. Ross Elliot was born on June 18, 1917, and portrayed the slick publicity man in 1952, at the age of 35. His character was charming and fast-talking, and so was Elliot, but behind his on-screen charisma was a storm of personal failures. Once a favored voice in Orson Welles' Mercury Theatre, Elliot's career nosedived after an ugly contract dispute ended with him blacklisted from major radio networks. Bitter and resentful, he bounced from show to show, often seen as unreliable and petty. Rumors circulated about his manipulative behavior with co-stars, and a messy divorce revealed a pattern of serial infidelity and emotional neglect. He struggled for years with chronic depression, made worse by his professional stagnation and a series of failed business ventures. Though he eventually found steady work on TV, Elliot died quietly on August 12, 1999, at the age of 82, his early promise long faded. Peggy Ray was born on March 31, 1921, and portrayed a card player on I Love Lucy beginning in 1953, at the age of 32. Her character, although minor, was emblematic of the lively, gossipy women that frequented Lucy's social world, bubbly, friendly, and quick with a quip. While Ray found consistent work in television through roles in The Waltons and The Dukes of Hazzard, she was often typecast, never fully breaking out as a lead actress. Behind her affable on-screen presence was a woman tormented by lifelong insecurities about her weight and appearance, which cost her numerous roles in an industry dominated by rigid beauty standards. She never married, and rumors swirled about a long-term relationship with a married producer that ended in heartbreak and seclusion. Though not publicly known for scandal, she was described by some colleagues as guarded and prone to angry outbursts on set when she felt dismissed. Her career slowed in the 1980s, and she quietly faded from public view. Peggy Ray died on February 5, 2011, at the age of 89 from heart failure. Herb Vigron was born on June 5, 1910, and played Jewel in 1952 at the age of 42, a smooth-talking promoter tangled in Lucy's comedic chaos. But Vigron's off-screen hustle had darker edges. Behind his prolific radio and TV success lay a string of broken deals and failed investments, including a shady real estate scheme that bankrupted several colleagues. His habit of manipulating writers to insert himself into scripts earned him enemies, and a whispered scandal involving harassment toward a young co-star in the late 50s was quietly buried by a studio fixer. Vigron had a reputation for talking too much, on set and off, and was eventually blackballed from several radio networks for mocking producers on air. Married 3 times, each union ended in acrimony, with his last wife citing emotional cruelty and compulsive dishonesty. He died of cancer on November 29, 1986, at the age of 76, with few friends left in the business. Charles Lane was born on January 26, 1905, and appeared as the casting director in 1953, at the age of 48. Stern, sarcastic, and cutting, Lane's character was an extension of his real-life persona. A fixture of Hollywood's golden era, Lane was both revered and feared for his acid tongue. While he boasted over 250 roles, he was notorious for his disdain toward co-stars, often calling them amateurs on set. Behind the scenes, he was embroiled in feuds. One with a director ended in a near fist fight, while another saw him fired mid-shoot for refusing to take direction. His marriage was stable only on paper. He lived separately from his wife for the last decade of his life, and their son publicly accused him of being emotionally absent. Despite his long career, he never earned an Emmy, and frequently blamed a conspiracy of talentless hacks. Charles Lane died on July 9, 2007, at the age of 102, bitterly clinging to the belief that Hollywood never appreciated his brilliance. Tennessee Ernie Ford was born on February 13, 1919, and joined I Love Lucy in 1954 as Cousin Ernie at the age of 35. Ernie was an affable, musically inclined bumpkin who brought comic relief and country charm. Off-screen, Ford's music career soared, especially with his hit 16 Tons, but the fame masked a far darker reality. Behind his devout gospel singer image lay a long battle with alcoholism that destroyed his marriage and alienated his sons. His drinking escalated to the point that he missed performances and once collapsed on stage. Ford was forced into rehab multiple times, and there were unconfirmed reports of domestic abuse that the press, at the time, avoided covering. Colleagues described him as erratic and moody, a far cry from the folksy persona he portrayed. His health declined rapidly in later years, and Tennessee Ernie Ford died of liver disease on October 17, 1991, at the age of 72. Jay Novello was born on August 22, 1904, and first appeared as Mario in I Love Lucy in 1951, at the age of 47. Mario, his character, was a quirky foreigner often portrayed with exaggerated mannerisms, roles Novello was regularly cast in, sometimes to his own dismay. Though his face was familiar on screen, Novello battled bitterly with typecasting and resented being seen only as the ethnic comic. Off-camera, he was reportedly combative and paranoid, constantly accusing directors of sabotaging his lines or deliberately marginalizing him. His marriage crumbled under pressure, and there were court documents revealing a bitter divorce over financial disputes and alleged emotional abuse. Novello also struggled with deep-seated anger issues, and was notorious among co-stars for tirades during rehearsals. Despite his skill, producers found him too much trouble, and by the late 70s, work had nearly vanished. He died of cancer on September 2, 1982, at the age of 78. Alan Jenkins was born on April 9, 1900, and debuted as Officer Jenkins on I Love Lucy in 1952 at age 52. His character, a well-meaning but often clumsy cop, fit Jenkins's usual typecasting as the comic relief sidekick. Jenkins had once been a promising Warner Brothers contract player but spiraled into obscurity due to chronic drinking and a reputation for being difficult on set. He was frequently accused of showing up drunk to shoots, and during his later years, he was banned from several studios due to erratic behavior. Though he never married, he was linked to several scandals involving affairs with both men and women, which were quietly buried due to the social taboos of the era. His finances were a mess. He lost nearly everything to gambling debts and was once arrested for public intoxication. Ravaged by years of alcohol and tobacco use, Jenkins died of lung cancer on July 20, 1974, at the age of 74. Lawrence Dobkin was born on September 16, 1919, and appeared as a cunning counterfeiter in 1953, at age 34. His sharp wit and manipulative screen presence reflected a real-life intensity that often unsettled colleagues. Though he worked steadily in radio and TV, Dobkin frequently clashed with producers and had a reputation for being controlling and arrogant. He was known to rewrite scripts without permission and once stormed off set during a disagreement with a director. His first marriage ended in scandal when his wife accused him of emotional cruelty and infidelity. He was linked to a string of young actresses, often decades his junior, and there were whispers of power abuse and coercion, though none led to legal consequences. Dobkin also suffered a devastating personal blow when his estranged son died by suicide, a tragedy that haunted him privately. Though he remained professionally active into old age, his later years were marked by bitterness and legal disputes over creative credits. Lawrence Dobkin died of heart failure on October 28, 2002, aged 83. Eliza Alman was born on September 19, 1904, and portrayed the no-nonsense factory foreman in 1952, at the age of 48. On screen, she commanded with a stern demeanor, overseeing Lucy and Ethel in one of the most iconic scenes in sitcom history. But behind the deadpan delivery was a woman embittered by a career that never quite fulfilled its promise. Though a prolific voice actress, Alman constantly battled the industry's bias against women who aged out of leading roles. She was repeatedly pushed into background parts and was privately furious about being overlooked for more prominent comedic work. She never married, but letters later found in her estate hinted at a long affair with a married producer who ultimately cut her out of a major radio deal. Estranged from several family members, Alman grew reclusive in her later years, reportedly paranoid that her legacy was being erased. Crew members described her as curt and sometimes vindictive, often snapping at younger actresses. Despite a clean public image, her private diaries were filled with resentment and regret. Eliza Alman died on March 6, 1992, at 87, from pneumonia. Harry Bartell was born on November 29, 1913, and played a sly jewel thief in 1952 at the age of 39. His character's smooth criminal charm mirrored Bartell's real-life charisma, which helped him thrive on radio dramas. Yet behind the polished persona was a man plagued by secrets. A relentless workaholic, Bartell relied heavily on stimulants to keep up with grueling schedules, a dependency that quietly spiraled into addiction. Though never publicly outed, several colleagues accused him of sabotaging fellow actors by spreading rumors to secure better roles. His marriage collapsed under the weight of his ambition and emotional distance, with his ex-wife later accusing him of psychological manipulation. Bartell maintained a spotless reputation in public, but industry insiders knew of his quiet blacklisting from several TV studios during the McCarthy era due to suspected leftist affiliations. His only child, a daughter, changed her last name and spoke openly of his emotional neglect. Despite the smiles and steady voice, Bartell's legacy was one of ambition tinged with bitterness. He died of natural causes on February 26, 2004, aged 90. Shirley Mitchell was born on November 4, 1919, and played Lucy's friend Marion Strong from 1953 at age 34. Known for her high-pitched laugh, her character was lively and talkative, but Mitchell harbored deep resentment for being forever associated with such a shallow role. She longed to be taken seriously as a dramatic actress but faced constant rejection. Her marriage to composer Jay Livingston was far from the Hollywood fairy tale it appeared. Friends described them as cordially distant, and rumors swirled of extramarital affairs on both sides. Mitchell was estranged from one of her children, who later accused her of prioritizing fame over family and described her as emotionally manipulative. She was also known in industry circles as difficult to direct, frequently interrupting shoots to give unsolicited script notes. Though her public image remained untarnished, those who worked closely with her told of an ambitious woman haunted by the limitations of her career. Shirley Mitchell died on November 11, 2013, aged 94, from heart failure. Ray Kellogg was born on November 12, 1919, and played an airline pilot in 1954 at age 35. Though his character was calm and professional, Kellogg's real life was a swirl of self-destruction. Known for his roles in westerns, his career faded quickly after the 1950s. He developed a serious drinking problem, frequently showing up to sets intoxicated, which led to multiple firings. His wife divorced him in the early 1970s after a series of domestic disturbances, and while no charges were officially filed, insiders claimed the situation was volatile and possibly violent. He tried to reinvent himself as a producer but fell into debt after a failed investment in a low-budget film. His daughter later stated he was a stranger in his own home, battling depression and retreating into isolation. Industry friends said he spent his final years bitter and forgotten, living modestly in a rented home far from the spotlight. Ray Kellogg died of cancer on September 26, 1981, aged 61. Who's your favorite character in I Love Lucy? How do you feel knowing that the actors have passed away? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you so much.